Now, I have somebody very, very exciting for you. He is, of course, working on so many interesting things in the marketing world. In fact, I'm going to bring him on stage right now, and he's going to talk about how to dominate SEO locally and beyond. Everybody, please give a hand.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? All right, so we will do a Q&A at the end, because I think inevitably there's going to be some questions that occur from this. So I'm going to go through the slides. Any questions you have, write them down. We'll cover them at the end. I'll make sure that we go through as many as we can. And then I think there's an AMA at our booth tomorrow morning. Should we run out of time, I'm happy to answer any questions on this stuff for anybody. Before we get into this, show of hands, who's been doing SEO for longer than 10 years? All right, so we got a good number of people. And of those people that raised their hands, any experience with Panda and Penguin updates? All right, good, so we got some experience with that. So that's important because we're gonna kind of unpack a few things today, and I think it's really important that we look at the history of the algorithm, how it's developed over time, and it will translate directly into what we're talking about now, which is the helpful content update, Google Eat, all these new things that are kind of, creating a very volatile environment in the SEO world, and we'll kind of discover, why that is, why it's important, how we can try to overcome that. Getting into EAT a little more, so understanding that, and for those that don't know, EAT is experience, expertise, authority, trust. Google's been using this for quite a few years, but it's become really, really relevant in the last, 18 months worth of algorithm updates, and it's kind of the core of what they're focusing on, and it has to do with a lot of the topics we'll get into. Understanding entities and how Google views entities, and so that's going to be really, really critical. And then signals, which for local is kind of like the modern backlink, and how we're generating results on the local side for clients that need to get better map pack rankings, your plumbers, your chiropractors, your orthodontists, your dentists, because the old school way of just building links and linking it to the website just doesn't work anymore the way it used to. And then kind of how to tie this all together. So we'll dig in. So what we're looking at here is for 21, 22, 23, we have 33 Google updates, right? These are large algorithm updates. And when you look at the years preceding that, 2015 through 2020, they average 3 or 4 updates a year. Why is that? Well, technology changes, and those years came right after Panda Penguin. Right, and so when you look back at those years, 2011, 12, 13, 14, very, very volatile in the SEO space. At that time, I had worked at a bunch of different agencies, and then I got a job. I was the director of SEO at eZine Articles. I don't know if anybody is familiar with eZine Articles, but back in the day, they were a top 50 website, and they were part of ranking strategies back then, and they had tens of millions of pages of content, all of it user-generated, and that was a part of SEO strategies back in the day. The company, I'm from Wisconsin, the company was headquartered in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and so I was very fortunate because I learned a lot there. But Panda and Penguin completely destroyed the company. And it was because their approach was flawed and their approach was wrong, and they made, I don't know, probably hundreds of millions of dollars on Google AdSense. But the way it worked was users would sign up, create an account, you could publish articles on there, similar to like Medium or these other sites, WordPress.com, Blogger. The difference was they were categorized and they ranked really well because back in the day that strategy worked, and that's how they made all their money was Google AdSense. So these users were going to eZine Articles, publishing the content, we're taking their content, getting credit for it in Google, ranking well. AdSense ends up ranking because these websites generated, I don't know, I think 80, 90 million unique visitors a month, and some months depending on the time. Google came out with the Panda Penguin updates, and they lost 90% of their traffic overnight. And this is a company that had a lot of employees full time, and the company is now shut down because of algorithm updates. The owner made a lot of money, so we're not going to feel sorry for him. But the impetus here is that that's how much impact Google can have if you're not willing to change and adapt with their strategies. As their director of SEO, I gave a lot of recommendations. They didn't want to listen to it. Don't know if they would have worked or not. We would have tried. And so ultimately they kept on that path, and that was their downfall. You have to innovate, you have to be mobile, and you have to be very nimble in this environment because things are changing month to month. And in the past few months, we saw 3 algorithm updates within like a 60-day period. That's very, very abnormal in the eyes of Google even. So I show you this to understand that we're in one of those times right now, and this is a turning point where if you understand what Google wants right now, and you can implement this at a foundational level, I don't want to say it's going to future-proof you because things will inevitably always change, but we need to really be specific on what we're trying to go after. And so by focusing on these core elements that Google really wants, we can help future-proof ourselves and our clients so that they're not at risk for every single algorithm update that comes out. Unfortunately, that generally means we have to do things different, we have to maybe put more resources into things, or we have to take a different approach, and that's kind of the downside to these things. That's why Google's doing this. So before I start getting into the topics, we need to make sure that we understand Google is a business, first and foremost. They're not your friend. And they are here to make money. That's it, period. How they make money is their search engine has been the best search engine around for 2 decades, and it gets users the best results possible. And that's essentially what SEO on the organic side is doing. Google technically makes $0 from the organic SEO side. What it does is it keeps Google at the forefront and at the top of the pipeline for people to click on paid ads and interact with things that generate money for Google. I don't know what their revenue breakdown is now, but not that many years ago, 96% of their revenue came from Google ads, okay? Less than only around 25-30% of users on Google will click on a paid ad. So the vast majority of traffic, Google makes no money from, but they need you coming there and they need to give you good results. If they don't give you good results, you're going to go to a different search engine, and now they've lost you as a customer and they can't make any money on you. And so that's why the impetus on this is important. They're not doing these algorithm updates to upset the SEO space. They don't actually care about the SEO space. What they're truly going for is better quality results for the users so that they can sell you more through paid ads, okay? But because of that, that's why their focus is on the quality. So I wanted to show you these algorithm updates over time to kind of give you an idea that we're in that same trend right now. We're going to be coming out the other side probably by the end of this year. I anticipate we'll have a lot of clarity on a lot of these topics. So a couple things about helpful content, which is what we're going to get into first. How many here, by show of hands, have heard about the helpful content update, maybe even been impacted by it positively or negatively? A couple things. We'll just go through some of these points because these are not the specific focuses of today. Ads definitely hurt you. There's a lot of ad companies, I should say sites that have heavy ads on their content pages that are being affected by that. We need to make sure we're optimizing for usability, table of contents, internal links, jump links. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. Pop-ups, how many people are annoyed when they go to a website and you go to move the mouse cursor and the squeeze page pop-up hits and you got to click the X and you just loaded the website 3 seconds ago. Google penalizes for that. It's against their terms of service, and that is a problem. They're called interstitials, and there's a lot of research behind it, and do not recommend those. So if you have clients with that, get rid of those. Those can trigger a helpful content update penalty. This one hurts for the SEO space. More words does not equate to better rankings or more helpful content. Gone are the days of taking Surf for SEO, plug in a keyword or a competitor, and they have 2,500 words. We're going to do 2,900 words. The word counts no longer have any impact on rankings. We've tested this thoroughly, and that's just not what we're seeing. If you look at Surf for SEO or other tools that take the top 10 ranking results, you'll see that usually the #1 ranking result does not have the highest word count. It's high, like in the sense that it has a good amount of word volume there, but it's not the highest. And you'll see the ones in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th that a lot of times have more words than the #1 because they ran the same Surf for SEO report and said, hey, we're going to add 900 words to this page to have more, and it does not equate to better rankings. Google has confirmed this multiple times, and so just try to get rid of that and the idea that you have to have that. Helpful actually means higher level of expertise in solving problems faster, and again, we'll get into some examples of this. But just understand these things actually do mean it, because it's hard sometimes you hear like Google's like, it needs to be more helpful, it needs to be written for the user, right? How many times have we heard it needs to be written for the user? Well, what does that mean? It means you don't stick it in ChatGPT, spit out the same content that the neighbor did, and that's not helpful, right? Doesn't mean you can't use AI content, doesn't mean you can't use other forms of content, but they need to have some sort of value proposition added to them, and that's the tricky part. But Google's looking to solve an answer or solve a need or fix something, And if we don't put that inside of the content and make it easy to access and helpful to that person, that's going to create a problem. Health medical sites, My Money, My Life, Your Money, Your Life, as Google refers to these, heavily impacted by this. Why? Because people are making false claims, people are making unsubstantiated claims, and that's a big problem, and Google has the user's best interest in mind by trying to make sure that the content is actively going to solve your need and not spread misinformation. Because Google's at risk if they're spreading false health information or medical information that's false or it's not accurate or true. Not that they're liable for anything in that sense, but people are going to lose trust with them and they're going to be gone. That's why you've seen a lot of health and medical sites, finance sites heavily impacted by these updates, and that's why. Quick example, chiropractic site, right? Very common in the local space, talking about curing thyroid cancer or something with, adjustments or something. I'm not even trying to dig into it to say it's right or wrong. Bottom line is Google's going to look at that and say that's unsubstantiated. You're a chiropractor, you're not a medical doctor, you don't have the proper credentials, you don't have the proper footnotes and citations to back up that claim. This is not going to rank well, and that's very, very common. Content must be helpful and it needs to elevate the experience. So user first, helpful content. I know that's such a buzzword, doesn't mean much. We're going to dig into kind of what that means a little bit. And then too many similar topics and content pieces on the same subject. So I've been talking about this all day by people stopping by our booth. We work with agencies, and a lot of these agencies have had clients for 5 years. They're a plumber, or say a podiatrist, a foot doctor. And have been an SEO client for 5 years, and they're paying them X amount of dollars a month, and they're doing 4 blog posts a month for the last 5 years. So they're creating 4 posts a month, 50 blog posts a year, 5 years, 250 blog posts. Do you think they really found 250 engaging, riveting topics to write about for a podiatrist that people are interested in? No. So what inevitably will happen is they're creating, over 5 years, 15 blog posts on wart removal, as an example. Because every year it comes up in the content calendar, which is normal, this is part of SEO, and then we got to come up with a content topic. So they take something about wart removal, and it's, instead of top 3 things to look for in a wart removal specialist or doctor, it's, what not to look for, or top 5 things, or the latest things for 23, or 24, or whatever it is. And what ends up happening is that content is so regurgitated over those years that you have 15 wart removal pieces of content, and Google can't identify the uniqueness between each of them. Okay? And so that's just very common, and I'm sure we've all seen this, and I'm sure you guys have clients that have seen it. So the helpful content update looks at that and it says, hey, we see a bunch of blog posts, 15 of them on wart removal. What do we do with these? Well, the answer is they compete with each other. So now they cannibalize each other, and Google says with the helpful content update, hey, you have enough of these pages, we're going to apply a penalty or a filter to your website that applies site-wide. Okay, so helpful content update applies site-wide. So when there's a threshold of however many, we don't know what the percentage is, and I'm not saying it's a percentage, but when Google clearly identifies that there's a pattern of unhelpful content, enough pieces of it, enough volume, they apply a site-wide filter. Okay, that's different than a core algorithm update, which can do individual pages. So you can be impacted negatively where you lose traffic after a core update. Okay, these are the broad core updates. Typically, Google does 3 to 4 a year, sometimes 5. These are not the helpful content updates that we're talking about right this second. But on a broad core update, you can literally have just specific pages that are penalized, not the whole site. Helpful content, once you get to that threshold, the entire site gets penalized until you fix it. And too many topics, similar topics, is a really, really big contributor to this. And the way to clean it up is to merge everything into one, create a super page or a super topic. Usually you try to find the one that's still ranking that didn't lose the rankings, merge all the others in with a 301 redirect, and move on. And then you see if you can recover in the next 30, 60, 90 days. Some very common issues, like I said, too many ads on the site, the pop-ups. We just talked about too many existing similar pages or blogs around the same topic. Again, creates keyword cannibalization. We have a lot of client campaigns where they come to us and we look at it and they're like, why are we not ranking? And a lot of times it's because Google is not sure which of your 3 pages on the topic to rank because they're all too similar. Lack of unique content. This is a problem. This is a problem that used to be with the Panda Penguin updates, okay? Basically, people would take a good source article and they would spin it in an article spinner and pop out 50 versions where it takes synonyms and it just replaces them, and you technically get all these unique articles because they're not plagiarized, but they're not super readable, and that's what Google cracked down on 10, 12 years ago. What we have now is just lack of unique content. This is where the AI tools can get you in trouble because they're all pulling from the same sources. So if you take an AI piece of content and you heavily edit it, you're not going to have any problems because you've edited it enough to be unique. But Google is looking for the uniqueness of the content. Is it something original, unique, and does it solve a need, and does it help the user? Service area pages. Very common in the local space. So a couple things that they do. You have a service page for a plumber in XYZ city. They take the same page, duplicate it, swap out the city from XYZ city to ABC city, and you now have a page of content where, in the client's eyes, it's good because they're able to target more cities without having to pay for a ton of unique content. And the agencies like that because they can do it cheaper and they can offer a value there. And for the last several years, 3, 4, 5 years, this strategy was working. No longer working because what's happening? Google's looking at the service area page content and they're saying, hey, there's no way that you have 60 pages all talking about the same plumbing content and all that's switched out is the city. That's not helpful. That can trigger a helpful content update penalty. Location pages, same issue. Franchises are at risk for this. Not that you have to create 500 words of unique content on each page, but there has to be some sort of identifier there to make sure that we're not regurgitating the same sentences over and over and over again. I've seen it on client sites as little as 3 or 4 pages using the same boilerplate paragraphs of information about their company or brand can trigger the helpful content. Because basically Google's saying you got the same content repeated on these pages and it's not super helpful or relevant to that keyword or topic, that can ding you. And then AI content can be an issue in the context of not being helpful, regurgitated, nothing unique about it, doesn't solve the pain points, etc. Right? If I go to ChatGPT, I type in a prompt of, spit out a 500-word blog post about plumber in Green Bay, Wisconsin, you're not going to get anything unique with that. That's going to be 5 million other people also typing in the same thing. Probably the plumbers down the road who don't want to pay a marketing agency or hire somebody to do that are going to do the same thing. And so we need to make sure that we're creating something unique of value. It doesn't have to be a 40-year experienced plumber creating content. We have to provide some sort of value to that content, though, or it's no different than anything else, and we're going to end up in the same boat. And then one piece of the helpful content update is over-optimization. We have seen sites get penalized by helpful content update simply by being too optimized. This is where all the SEO tools coming out right now can hurt you. Not all the tools, but there are tools out there where they spit out a bunch of AI content and it's all NLP, right? So they got all the right terms. Think Surfer SEO, for example. Great tool, love Surfer. They'll spit out the content. A lot of times it's not even readable. If you don't edit it, if you could have it spit out and generate a 3,000-word article, they pull content from other sites and piece it together so that it doesn't trigger an AI scanner tool. So it's not detectable by AI, but it's not readable then. Okay? And then in the flip side, there's tools that spit out all of the stuff, and it offers no value in the sense that it's just optimized for keywords. So you put in, I want to rank for keyword X, and every H2, H3, whatever, it's too perfect, right? Google's able to tell that the content is not helpful, it's over-optimized for keyword stuffing, or keyword densities are too high, and the content's not helpful, it's going to trigger it. We get into the EAT component of helpful content. So again, EAT stands for experience, expertise, authority, trust. This is not a new term to Google. They've been using this for several years. This goes back to the quality guidelines that have been leaked. I think this goes back to 2018 or 2019. I could be wrong on that, but something like that. Essentially, Google wants to know where the content came from and who created it. And so that's what we're really looking for here. Okay, so authorship. Is it a doctor who created it and he has experience in thyroid surgeries? Well, he probably is an expert on this topic. He's also performed 500 surgeries in the last 3 years, so he's an expert with experience. And he comes from whatever medical hospital, so he's authoritative and we can trust him because of all these things come together. So what I'm showing you here is an example of a blog post page from Ahrefs, how to get backlinks, 14 tactics that work in 2023. What's right up top? By Joshua Hardwick, right? On the right side of that, I highlighted that. It's got him, his profile picture, and a little information about him. He's the head of content, and he has experience in this and that. And we have on the left side the table of contents, which scrolls with the content down. This is solving quite a few problems on the eat side. We're telling them where the content came from, authorship, right? Trusted and verified profiles are critical to this, okay? It's linkable, so you can click into, and on the next slide, I'll show you some of the elements on his author page. It also says it's reviewed by, and that it's also clickable to go into that, right? So how many client sites are using authorship? Virtually none, or very few. And this is super important if you are a doctor, because you're credentialed, you have an MD, or you have a license or credentialing from a board. And if Google can recognize that, it's going to help propel your content to be more trustworthy. In addition, the table of contents is solving the usability factor, and we're providing jump links. So what a jump link is Google looks for this up top, and they've said this repeatedly, that jump links are very important and nobody uses them. Very few people use them, I should say. You load the article, and especially look at the recipe sites. I love using the recipe sites. Nobody wants to read about all the stuff. Oh, we don't care about how you came up with this recipe from your grandma and all the stuff. Click here to see the recipe, the ingredients, and the instructions. You can click on it. That jump link gets you to the content you care about. Google looks at that as a huge trust factor, because if you're willing to let them skip that content and get right down to that, they also are using those jump links and finding that, and that's what a table of contents does. It also helps categorize the content with an internal linking structure that helps Google understand more about the page, so it's a win-win. So highly recommended. And then of course the authorship with his profile picture helps add credibility to the page, and Google knows more about him. And then here, if you were to click onto his author page, he has more content about him, what Joshua's done in his career, who he is, what experience he has. And I took some other screenshots. Here, he has the events listed that he spoke at. Here's video recordings of him talking about SEO or content. Here's his most recent articles, all around SEO trends, keyword mapping for SEO. So when Google sees this, are they able to tie this to a verified content creator and say, well, we know enough about Joshua, we can trust this content? I think we would all agree yes, right? And it was not written by some random guy who doesn't know anything about SEO. So with that, we get into entities, okay? And that's what I've been talking about. The business brand is an entity. The person is an entity, right? So you have a doctor, he's an entity, but he works at a hospital, that's an entity as well. The reason entities are so important is because Google has the knowledge graph. By a show of hands, how many people are super familiar with the knowledge graph and understand how that works? Okay, good, so we got some hands. This is important because Google loves to feature and favor brands. And the short answer is why? Everybody says, oh, they want to put the small guy out of business. No, they don't care. They just care about people clicking on ads. Why are they okay with big brands? Because it's safe to send you to Amazon. It's safe to send you to Best Buy. Nobody's getting ripped off. If you get ripped off on Amazon, you'll get your money back. You're guaranteed. Jeff Bezos will guarantee it. You're good. You're getting your money back. So they love brands because it's safe, and it'll make sure that they don't get screwed over, so that they come back to Google for the next set of questions or problems they have, and then they can try to click on an ad and make Google money. So with that being said, entities are four things: person, place, thing, and ideas. And I'll give you some quick examples of what these look like. This is what's popping up, what's called a knowledge graph panel, basically. And it's Elon Musk, obviously. Everybody knows who Elon Musk is. What is it doing there in these different panels that pop up? What is Google showing us? They have a knowledge graph panel on Elon, and they know everything about him. His pictures, what he looks like, his videos, his age, his net worth, his children, links to all sorts of random stuff. They have links to his social things, podcasts that he's featured on, because he's an entity inside of the knowledge graph. Okay? And you can actually take the knowledge graph and you can get a unique user code, which is Elon Musk's unique knowledge graph user code, and you can put that in links, you can create backlinks to it, and it will trigger this knowledge panel. That knowledge graph is how Google understands everything on the internet, okay? Another example is a place, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, okay? Random city in the middle of Wisconsin. Google has a knowledge panel for that. Why? Because they're an entity inside of the knowledge graph, and we'll get into why these entities are important. You can see they have information there. They have the map. They know that Harley-Davidson has their headquarters there, and they know the weather and temperature and other information about Milwaukee, places to visit, eat. People love this about it, and they have their own knowledge panel, okay? And it's just the city of Milwaukee. They've done nothing to optimize for that, but Google knows enough about that to put them inside the knowledge graph. A thing, okay, and a thing is kind of random, but just grab the UFC as an example. It's a brand, but it's not a physical location. It's the Ultimate Fighting Championship, right? Google, the UFC has tons of different knowledge graphs inside of Google. Everybody's heard of Dana White probably, right? So Dana White has his own knowledge graph. So does Conor McGregor, so does everybody else. They all work at the UFC. The UFC is also a brand, but in this case, it's showing up as a thing because they're showing you different events and things like that they're running across different parts of the country, right? And again, it pulls up a knowledge panel, and in this case, they're pulling up fight cards from the UFC automatically to show you on Google's results. So if there is a live pay-per-view fight for the UFC, you can refresh Google, and as soon as somebody's announced a winner or loser, it'll update on here, and you don't have to buy the pay-per-view. I mean, you don't get to see the fight, but you can see the results in real time. Same thing with if the Green Bay, I'm from Wisconsin, if the Green Bay Packers play, you can type in Packers score, you get an entity for a thing, right? It's not the Packers, it's the Packers score, that's a thing, and Google's pulling that data in automatically, and as soon as they score a touchdown, within 10 seconds, it's updated on Google, because they have this in place with the knowledge graph and the entities. And here's an example of mass energy equivalence is a idea, and so Google even has these things inside of the knowledge graph, and they know everything about it, and they spit out the formula. They have all the associated information. They understand where it came from. Why are these important? Because we need to connect entities together in this day and age to get results on Google. So Google wants to trust a brand, but if you don't have a knowledge graph, Google doesn't trust you by default. Doesn't mean you can't rank, okay? Non-competitive niches and industries, you can of course rank without being on the knowledge graph. I'm not trying to say that, but it makes it difficult, and it's an uphill battle. What's important to understand is the business has its own brand, an own entity, an own knowledge graph ID inside of Google. The owner behind the business also will have that, assuming he is well-known enough or would like to build that up. As an example, a doctor who works at a hospital. Hospital has a knowledge graph, doctor has a knowledge graph. Two different entities, but when we link them together, what does it create? It creates authority, experience, expertise, and trust. A hospital, by and large of itself, can't have any experience or expertise. They need people inside of there with that. That's the doctor doing the surgeries, okay? He brings that experience and expertise component. This is no different than if you had a plumbing client or a chiropractor. You know, XYZ chiropractic, they have a doctor. He's a doctor of chiropractic. He has credentials from a board-certified panel, and he should be working to build up his entity, and you should be authoring that content underneath him at the website so that they know that it's coming from somebody who actually has experience and expertise in that field, and that's going to help you. Employees at a business. So you can have a business that has a lot of employees. You're going to have a lot of different people there who have experience. They also can be an entity and should be treated as such to try to build up their knowledge graphs and knowledge panels. The city they're in, their Google business profile listing, which is where we're starting to get into the local side of this, is an entity. Every single Google business profile listing in Google has a knowledge graph ID, and you can build backlinks to it. You can use it in all sorts of ways to try to help improve your rankings and generate signals. Domains are also an entity. Obviously, Google understands URLs. They can also be built up. So how entities tie into EAT? They make connections between business and the people there, right? And so, again, we're taking a brand and we're saying, how do they have experience and expertise? Oh, because Dr. So-and-so works there. Now that Google sees on the website for the brand entity that they have About Us, which clicks into each doctor who works there, oh wow, so now we know that this hospital has experience in, you know, heart surgery, brain surgery, cancer surgery, et cetera, because they have all these different doctors who we know are experts in their field work there. And if those people are associated with different pieces of content, it makes it real simple and easy for Google to associate that content with them. Author pages, right? So Google's very clear on this. The quality rater guidelines that were leaked from them multiple times are telling human quality guideline raters When you pull up the website and it's for a brand, you go to the About page. About page should be about the company. And if there's an owner on there who is associated and should be his own entity, they should be able to click into him to read more, but his bio should not be on that About page. About page for the brand should be about the company, and then you click in to have author pages or bios for each of the doctors to give more information on them. So a big mistake a lot of companies make is they do an About page and they have all these employees listed. It's not what Google wants to see. It's not correct. Doesn't mean it won't work. Google's smart enough to still piece it together, but we want to give them what they want. So we want to give them a ton of information on the brand on the About page and have separate author pages or bios for the individuals, whether they're doctors or not. Could be painters. It could be construction workers who are executives who have 40 years experience in the industry. They're still experts at what they do, and they need Google to understand that they're an expert at what they do. Bio blurbs and photos and sidebar on associated content, things like blog posts. So again, if we have a blog post on top things you're looking for when a doctor wants to rank for something about heart surgery, letting them know that you're an actual heart surgeon, you're probably going to trust that article and believe what that doctor is saying, as opposed to some random thing on a random Reddit thread or something like that for somebody who we know is not an expert. So Google is looking at that to how to get that experience, expertise, authority, trust relayed into each piece of content. The company About page, location pages. Location pages are super important in the world of SEO. You think of a franchise, you think of a Roto-Rooter, you need drain cleaning services. You go to Google, you type in emergency drain cleaning in your city. You're probably going to find a Roto-Rooter that ranks or near the top, and you're going to look at them and compare the pricing or whatever it is. Most of those don't have their own website. They have a really shitty corporate website, and they have thousands of location pages, and each location page is doing at least a couple things right. It's linking to the Google business profile for each Roto-Rooter on that individual page, and it's mentioning that city, and it's giving those necessary signals and letting them know that, hey, it's Roto-Rooter, it's a big brand, Google knows who that is with the URL and the trusted brand entity information inside of the knowledge graph. We don't know this end Roto-Rooter though, who's only got 20 reviews on Google, but because they're linked and the main Roto-Rooter site is linking to them from that corporate website, they're the franchise site, they're probably going to rank a lot higher. And that's why you'll see sites that are not optimized well, but big brands rank well sometimes, is because they're trusted still. It's a trusted source. And then schema. Schema is super important. Schema is hidden markup code, for those that don't know, that we can put on a website, and it gives Google a ton of information about whatever it is we want them to know about. So people are like, well, I'm not going to take a service page website on my orthodontic website practice and say it was written by Dr. So-and-so. I'm like, I agree, it would not look right, it would kind of look tacky. So we can use schema for that. We can tell Google that the author of this page and link to that author page and link to that entity and a knowledge graph URL and ID if you want to get really in-depth into that. So signal generation, the new links for local, right? This is why it's all tying together. How do we tie these entities together? So we know that the brands have an entity, we know that the business has an entity, the GBP, people, places, things all have entities. How do we tie them together? How do we take the old school idea of link building and turn it into something functional for local? And that's signals, right? So user signals are much stronger than link building, right? On the organic side, we can write a nice article, make a guest post link on an authoritative site, link back. We'll see our organic rankings go up on a national side. On a local side, you can do that and get nothing, because Google has two algorithms. They've got the organic national side, they've got the local map side. They are two different algorithms that do talk to each other, but the local side, we really need to be generating signals to get them to rank better, okay? And so how we're going to do that is by using things like the knowledge graph links and URLs. There's a CID link, so every Google Business Profile listing has a unique CID link, which if you Google it, you can find out how to grab that. And you can build backlinks to the individual GBP listings. And we've tested this in depth and see a lot of results from just linking to the GBP directly as opposed to the website. You can link to both, but making sure you test that. But user metrics are important. Somebody who's got a verified and aged Google account and they go leave a review will do more for rankings than doing 10 links, okay? So we cannot fake user signals. They're very difficult to fake. But that's ultimately what Google's looking for, is trust in signals. So when we do this, we developed a link building strategy that for local, we'll take the client's Google Business Profile listing. We write a 500-word article. and it's contextually relevant around the keyword. So maybe it's just say, we'll just use a painter, you know, residential painter in XYZ city. And so we write an article talking about that brand and what makes them unique and good as a painter. And then we'll link to the website with anchor text in the top or bottom. And then we'll link to the GBP profile, the listing directly, using their CID link or their knowledge graph link. And then what we're going to do is not only is the content contextually relevant, we link to the website and their GBP listing, but we're now going to embed the GBP listing in the articles, right? So we take Google's embed code, embed it into the article, and then get that published on websites. Similar to how we would do a guest post, but we're now embedding the Google Business Profile listing. Every time that that's viewed, every time that page is loaded, it generates a signal that Google can view and read, and then that's going to ultimately help those map pack rankings a lot more than just doing a guest post link to a website. And you'll notice you could do link building until you're blue in the face for some clients and they don't get any movement in the map pack. You build a few links to the map pack directly, and it can have a really big effect. So it's definitely important. We'd like to use what we call syndication links. The reason these are important is because they get published on, helps if I hit the right button. They get published on sites that have a lot of high authority with real traffic. And this screen is just showing some latest headlines about how everything is referring to things as signals now on the local side, right? What are they looking for? Openness now on the map listing. So if your client is hours are set 8 to 4 and it's 4:30, they may not rank if I'm searching after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Something new. We didn't know Google did that. I didn't know for sure. I had hunches. They finally confirmed that. They use all sorts of signals now to generate rankings on the maps, including proximity signals. If I'm on my phone on the north side of the city, it's probably not going to pull up south side of the city results. If I go to the south side, it won't pull up north side. They're using these signals live to help direct and determine rankings. And that's what we're trying to categorize and capitalize on, is generating those signals in a legitimate way. So examples of direct user signals on Google: leaving a review from a trusted Google account. I don't know if anybody here leaves reviews when you go out to eat or whatever. It doesn't take long to become a local guide, and you'll get feedback on 10,000 people have seen your review and love that you did this. If I'm a local guide and I go leave a review for a business, it's live instantly and it stays up. It doesn't get filtered. How many people, I don't know, maybe you have clients where, why am I getting 20 reviews and only 5 are sticking? Those 15 that Google wouldn't put up, they don't have any trust, they don't have any age, they don't have any history with Google, they're not going to let that review go live. And so user signals are the hardest thing to fake. And that's why Google has ReviewGate. Anybody who's in the local space knows where clients will generate hundreds of reviews, only a few show up, because Google is filtering, saying, we don't trust that review, we don't think it was legitimate. You can't fake that. And those signals mean the most. Getting driving direction requests from the Google app, from Google's website to a business and then driving there, they see and know all that. Those user signals are helping strengthen and bolster your map pack rankings as well. Asking questions on the GBP profiles. My daughter is a dog groomer, and she has her own dog grooming business. When her clients take pictures of the dog, when they pick them up and they post them with a review in her side of her business, her ranking will jump up. Okay, it's that strong of a signal. And those are very difficult to manipulate and fake. That's why Google's using that. Social shares of content, so social does matter. If you get engagement, if you don't have any engagement, it's useless. Entity signals, so we kind of talked about in the syndication link building. Loading an embedded GBP map on a web page. Google knows when you're loading it because the API reports back everything live. Okay, so that's a big critical part. Linking to the CID knowledge graph URL, we've already covered that. I recommend you guys try that. Again, you can do it on a guest post. Just make sure you're taking the GBP listing, embedding it in the guest post as well, and then link to the GBP listing using the CID link or the knowledge graph link. You will see ranking improvements. You will see visibility improvements. Make sure that your content on those links is contextually relevant. That's really important. Make sure those are going on legitimate websites. Google does love to see websites that have real traffic on them, and mind you, they know what traffic is going to every website because they're sending it there. So you can't really fake it. You could do a bunch of bot traffic, and they'll know that that's not real because they know how much traffic they're sending to just about every website out there. Citation data to include for a local business, super critically important for the entity signals. And again, we're letting Google know what entity this is associated with. On a GBP listing, they use name, address, phone number. Those three are kind of synonymous. Obviously recommend Yext. just because I know the Yext guy's sitting in up there. Uber, all Yext, they all work though. But you want to make sure your NAP information is consistent to whatever you're doing. And then again, information about the business or industry is critical. Here's an example of how the syndication links work that we recommend, and anybody can emulate this. You can do it with guest post. But what we do is we create the first one. It then gets pushed out to 15 to 20 actual news content sites that we don't own. They're not PBNs. These are real sites with real authority and real traffic. When they choose to pick them up because they agree that the content matches and passes their editors, they go live, and it creates a link then on a legitimate content media site that is linking to the map pack with a CID link, the website, and it's embedding the GBP in there. So we're able to take one piece of content and create 15 to 20 backlinks. The reason for that is simply cost, right? Like most clients don't want to pay thousands of dollars for backlink building every single month. A couple data points of some case studies that we did, GBP backlink tests. This one, with this slide here, we actually did this with guest post links. So we embedded the guest post links with the GBP. We did 10 or 15 of them, and every single one saw improvements in visibility. And if you notice, we specifically chose GBPs that didn't have a lot of traction, because it's a lot easier to throw fuel on the fire to a client who's ranking number 4 on Google and get them a little boost than it is somebody who's like not found or non-existent. And so you'll notice some of these, we're only getting 115 views on their profile from search, and then in the next period after, they got 415, right? So 3.7x or whatever on visibility, not great. We want to see them in the thousands still. But the fact that we did a very, very isolated test and we're able to get 3 to 4x their visibility numbers shows that this method works. And we did it again for a bunch of different clients. This test was done on a franchise. It was a chiropractic franchise, I believe 140 accounts at the time when we did the test. And none of these websites have their own website. They all use the corporate website. So this was the perfect isolation test for us to prove that these syndication links will have massive results. And because none of them have their own website, they all have the exact same optimizations. And we optimized all of the GBP listings exactly the same because corporate dictates that we do so. So none of them could be like altered to be better or higher powered than the others. And we then ran the syndication links. We did it over, I forget the time period on this one, but for whatever the time period was, those that use syndication links generated 28% more phone calls than those that didn't. And that's massive. So in this case, for this franchise, it was the difference of like 70,000 phone calls to whatever, 90,000. So it was like an extra 20,000 phone calls along all of those locations. And they signed up and forced every single franchisee to use those syndication links because of this. And I tell you that to use this as a data point to justify why you should try testing this. You will experience great results. It will change. We'll inevitably have to innovate and adapt as Google changes. Google changes literally every day. There's 8 to 12 algorithm updates a day that are minor, that we never see. And so they're always testing. They have a lot of smart people there. We're not trying to game the system. We're trying to work within the system. So we want to create helpful content that actually solves and answers the question or solves that need, so that Google, when Google sees that, that's going to help, right? One thing when you're creating that content is make sure that answer is up top, right? So that's one thing Google looks at, and that is a ranking factor, is are we solving the question or the need up top? And so we want to make sure that we are. Here's an example of local SEO website structure. Don't worry about, you're not going to be able to see it. But on the next screen here, we have the QR code. That local structure will help you guys. That'll be part of it. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think, there's a lot to this. Like, I'm not trying to bore you guys, but you need to understand where Google's going so that you can adjust your strategy to adapt to that, so you're not here in 3 months, 3 years. We want to try to future-proof ourselves so that you're providing value to your clients and you're able to get the results, whether it's your clients or you're doing SEO for your own brand that you work at, or a company or your organization or an enterprise. All of these things hold true, and I will say Google's going to continue cracking down on these. It's not going to get more lenient, it's going to get worse. And so if you are refusing to adapt and work within this framework, you will struggle. You're going to have a lot of clients that get penalized. We follow the framework, and we still have sometimes clients getting penalized, but we found what ways we can utilize to work them out of that, and that's what I'm trying to share with you guys today, is understanding how entities work together, why we want to generate signals on the local side. If we're an e-commerce site and we're doing it on a national level, we can get away with not having as many signals, but that's where Google's headed, right? We want quality content that's actually solving a need. So hopefully that helps everybody. We'll be doing an AMA tomorrow morning at our booth, I think 11, I believe. So please stop by if you have questions. I would love to answer any questions in detail. Happy to look at your website. I'll pull it up and some different tools, and we'll go through it and see what we can find out. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, David. Another round of applause for such an interesting session, especially on all of those structures. Very, very cool. I wanted to remind everyone that there is a great networking party tonight at the Brooklyn Bowl. It's at 8 p.m., so make sure that you sign up RSVP on the app. Does everybody here have the app already? Raise your hand. Yeah, let's see those hands. Great. So make sure you RSVP, and the Brooklyn Bowl will be very, very fun tonight. And if you have any questions, of course, there's, once again, the AMA at the booth tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.